Good morning, everyone. Jeff, thank you very much for the introduction. Yes, I think as it's been said before, I've been involved in the industry for different industries for a period of over 30 years, amongst them retail, processing, and services. Since 2004, I've been part of Brenochem, and over the past 16 years, the business has evolved quite a lot from a fairly small business involved in the wine industry to a rather, I would say, bigger role player. We do the processing of byproducts from the wine industry. That includes grape pomace or grape husks and the processing of wine lees sludge. These two raw materials are then utilized to produce a number of other products, first being alcohol and then also tartrates. The tartrates we do export and it gets converted to tartaric acid, which we then re-import and we sell to the local sellers. In addition to that, we also sell cream of tartar, which we export. So we cover.
Andries, sorry, Andries, I just want to introduce Gerard. I think you're too excited about what's happening in there. I just want to introduce Gerard Hartman from Sage, who's joining us today as well. Gerard, as you can see, Andries is quite excited about his business, and we'll get into the detail of that. Maybe just introduce yourself and what your role is.
Yes, good morning, Jeff. Good morning, Andries. Great to be on the show with each one of you. As always, from a Sage side, we're here to support our partners, AWK, and we're going to speak about Sage Intacct today. One of our cloud native products that we've launched just over 12 months ago into the South African market. And yes, Jeff, it's good to see you and good to listen to Andries and the customer story. So I'm going to hand back to you.
Thanks, Gerard. Thanks, Andries. Yeah. So as Gerard alluded to, the format for today is very much around what the journey that Brenochem and Andries and his team are going through at the moment, moving to Sage Intacct. And particularly what we focus this one is about Sage 50 Pastel migrations and the special offers that are available for those customers and other Sage customers as early adopters of this great system. You probably saw in that video some really great flashy dashboards and insights that businesses are getting. But it's one thing for myself as a business partner of Sage and for Gerard to actually say that this product is fantastic. We always find, though, it's best to come from the horse's mouth or someone in the agricultural sector. So here's Andries. If you want to come back on, Andries, and just give that blurb again around why Brenochem and why Andries Rousseau.
Sorry, Jeff, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Unfortunately, I can't get the camera back on, but I'll just continue. I don't know what details you had. I'll just give you a bit more background with regard to Brenochem again. As I've said before, the business has grown substantially over the past 16 years. And during last year, the business was actually sold to new investors, and that brought about a bit of a change compared to previous years. As I've said earlier, and again, correct me if you didn't hear that, we process byproducts from the wine industry, mainly being pomace or grape husks, and then also wine sludge lees. These products are then used to further produce other products which we sell back to the industry. During the takeover or the sale of the business last year, with new investors, they had new requirements, and that actually forced us to look at different options in terms of reporting, doing things smoother, easier, and faster. And that eventually led us to get involved with Sage Intacct and AWK. So that's where we are at the moment. We're busy with the training. We're looking forward, and it's quite a wonderful journey. So thus far.
So Andries, what is agriculture?
Aquaculture is the abalone. I don't know if people are renowned with the word abalone. In Afrikaans, it's normally known as perlemoen. So when I was involved in that industry, we used to do a lot of focus was on inventory, for instance. But that was something that sort of just acted as a good sort of stepping stone for future businesses as well, because it was a bit different to what you normally get, but it also taught me a lot in the sense that you could realize that there are different options and different ways of interpreting things, all within your accounting standards, obviously. But it was a good schooling for me. Yeah, I don't know if some of your other clients may be involved in that, but that was a very interesting time. And then, as I said, from that I moved on to the wine industry. Which is also...
I think, Andres, with our engagements over the last few months as you've been implementing, one thing I've got from you is your attention to detail and your ability to very quickly analyze situations. And I must admit, it's been a privilege to work with you as we're going through this journey. I don't think I've ever had someone almost build the system, design the system before we've even started. But I think the attention to detail is something that's really critical within the finance space. And how are you finding that within the implementation right now?
Well, I think the attention to detail that we've experienced from AWK's side and Sage Intacct is enormous, and I think I've been bowled over by it. We've come across a number of problems thus far, and I think there will be future problems again. But every time the feedback we've had shows and confirms to us that people are committed to make this thing work. And that also gives me the satisfaction, or at least the view that, on the way forward, this is something we're going to improve on, which we're going to use even further. And it's nice to know that you've got a partner that's going to walk the full road with you. You will not be left on your own. There's somebody carrying the weight with you, and that gives a lot of satisfaction, and it shows there's definitely commitment.
Yeah, and I think what's
on the detail side, Jeff. It's quite clear, and at the moment we're busy with training, and you can even see it there. If we come up with a problem, there's immediate response to try and sort it out, and you want that kind of commitment from a partner that joins you in moving forward.
Yeah, and I think that's a great insight there from our business. I appreciate that, Andres. And I think one of the things that's with the cloud-based software and the way things are working, there is a lot more sort of coaching on the system as opposed to implementation as it used to be previously. A lot of these systems are no longer black boxes that you give to a consultant and they come back 6 months later. I think it very much is an empowerment journey. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And as I say, it gives you already some kind of an insight into the long-term relationship that will develop even further, and that's quite comforting.
Awesome. So you mentioned there, you obviously gone through a bit of a history, and your circumstances led you to look at reporting structures and ability to do business slightly differently because of the different investors, etc. Obviously, many businesses have been affected by COVID and the uncertainty, and I'm sure your business in particular has been affected. How have you found working in this environment over the last year and a half?
Well, it was pretty difficult. I think it's well known, if you look at the wine industry as a whole, there have been a lot of challenges. But we have, and I think it's not just related to the wine industry, everybody would have experienced that. But you had to adapt to it. And that's also one of the reasons why we had gone for Sage Intacct. From the guidelines we have received and the knowledge we've managed to compile over time, it is quite clear that moving forward, these are the kind of things we need to address. And I'm referring, if you look at the format of it, and for other clients maybe, or prospective clients, if you go and look at the dashboards and the information available on Sage Intacct, that was quite easy to satisfy us that this will be the way forward. We need to make use of this program. It offers quite a lot. Obviously, at this point in time, we haven't been exposed to everything yet, and there are modules that we don't even know about. But the package as a whole just seems as though it's going to be more than able to assist us, even in this difficult environment. The important thing for us is the feedback we can get from it. Previously, we had to work on a basis where we had to do a lot of input ourselves, whereas now with Sage Intacct, once you've uploaded your information, it's just much easier to derive the necessary information from it.
Awesome. So yeah, I think, what you mentioned there, a lot of businesses are facing similar sort of pressures. These webinars can be quite lonely, and I'm sure you're feeling that sitting in your room here. So I'd like to do a little quick poll with the audience just to get a quick understanding of what they are feeling. And obviously you've seen on for those that are attending here, there's a toolbar on the right, and might be minimize or maximize with the three button ellipses. There's a poll that I'm going to start now, and you should see it pop up on your screen. If you just go to the poll section, if you could just start answering, what are your main challenges you're experiencing at the moment? Is it transparency and visibility, kind of what Andres is referring to, the fact that you can't get the information that you need? Have you got problems managing multiple entities? Are you doing things independently outside the systems? I think one of the things that I've found with the remote working is a consolidated view of the business is almost impossible for a lot of businesses. They're really struggling to get the information that's sitting in different people's heads. Those coffee machine conversations or around the water cooler are no longer happening. I see a lot of people are kind of voting in that area as well. And then the last kind of option we have in that poll there is around the current systems and the manual processes. I think the productivity has improved for businesses by working from home, but I think a lot of the time it's actually a lot of manual processes, and because people are working late hours, there's more prone to error. So although there's more work being done, sometimes there's a little bit more error prone. Are you finding that a little bit with the remote working, Andres, for the people that you're not seeing on a daily basis?
Yeah, it tends to be a problem, especially if I look at the system we've got at present. I mean, it's just, apart from being a bit outdated, and the problem being on our side that we had to do a lot of work, say, from an Excel point of view, and it doesn't make it more difficult. There's a lot of duplication going on, but again, the fact that I think one thing one should consider is the fact that Sage Intacct is cloud-based. It makes it much more easier. When people are working remotely, it just makes it more easier to access, and communication is even better compared to what we've had up till now. Whereas now you have to work via emails and so forth. You can go straight onto the system, and the interactive activity is just much easier.
Yeah, I mean, that's where that collaborate tool within Intacct comes into play, where you've got instant messaging tool built into it, which is great, not just for communication, but also from an audit perspective to recognize what's happened on the system.
Correct. From just on that point regarding the audit, that was one of the other reasons we also decided to move across, is there were certain things raised during the audit, one of them being the valuation of stock, for instance. And immediately Sage Intacct was able to address that problem for us.
Okay, so I mean, the poll's pretty much over now, and it looks like the results are very interesting. 50% are saying very similarly, Andres, that sort of the managing the multiple entities and manual consolidation outside the system is a major issue for them right now. And I think if it was anyone to relieve that sort of problem for them, Intacct would probably be it. I don't know if you can comment on what you've seen about consolidation of information in the system.
Absolutely, Jeff. That's one of the other reasons as well. With the changeover we had with the new owners, the business was, I would say, almost multiplied in that we have now got 4 entities, where in the past we used to have 1. So obviously you need to have consolidations, for instance. So the other people, I can understand their problems with consolidations on an Excel format. It's just, apart from being outdated, it's extremely time consuming. Whereas with Sage Intacct, I mean, something you're going to have immediately. So it's just one example, and I'm sure there are going to be many more of additions or positives from Sage Intacct compared to what one used to have.
Yeah, and I think, we focus a little bit on the negatives there around COVID and what it's had an impact, but one of the things that we've done a lot of research on, and Sage as well, a lot of businesses are accelerating their digital transformation as a result of this. I mean, the rush to suddenly figure out a way to do remote working because everyone had to be at home kind of changed the thinking, because a lot of people realized that actually, although they've been delaying on these change initiatives, once they were forced into the situation, it actually wasn't that hard. And as a result of that, they're doubling down on their technology investments. And we found something with the research that Sage shared with us. 65% acceleration in digital initiatives. That means people are really looking to transform their business from a technology perspective. And not only are they transforming their business with technology, they're reaping the rewards. So this is an independent research done by Accenture, and it really fascinates me that the companies that have looked at their IT budget and said to themselves, rather than focusing on what we normally do, which is 70% on maintenance and support and just kind of keeping the lights on, let's actually invest 70% of our budget on innovation, on new systems, on actually trying to get the best tech in our business. And as a result of that, they're seeing 5 times the revenue growth than those who are following the traditional approach, which is just, kind of keeping the lights on. And I think, this is where Sage Intacct plays. It's a latest in tech. It's a cloud-based system built in the cloud. It really is an opportunity for leapfrogging. So I'd like to bring Gerrit in, and you've also done some research, Gerrit, on terms of where CFOs are sitting at the moment and interviews with them. What are you finding their business and technology priorities are right now, given the environment we're in?
Yes, thank you, Jeff. Back to the audience, I think it's very interesting stats that Jeff showed us. I always say when you start thinking about your digital journey, what do you want to automate? What would you like to have better visibility in? In the poll, we saw the need for consolidations as well as visibility, which comes back to reporting within complex structures. And bringing it back to what CFO wants is exactly what the research showed us. They want to improve cash flow, and they want to improve productivity. Now, if we look at cash flow during COVID, that was key for all businesses to preserve. And then also, when you look at the technology, they want to be able to have better insight, which is your data analytics. And those two being the top. But also to further add to that is, as CFO said, for me it's 3. It was cash flow, it was data analytics, combined with how do I transition? How do I unpack an inefficiency, make sure that I require the correct partner and technology to support my business into the future? And that's exactly the purpose of Sage, is we there to provide technical solutions to solve problems and have good partners like AW Cape to support your business into future. And for everyone on the call today, I think that's very important. When you start, where do you start with your digital journey? And how do you make sure you sustain your business by making the right choices for the future? Jeff, I think we lost sound.
No, yeah.
Sorry, I'm mute there. Sorry, I was just taking some water. One of the things that I'd like to address, and maybe there's a couple of people in the audience can just put comments on that in the chat window. I think there's a bit of a white element because people rushed out the door when COVID hit to kind of look at cloud hosting solutions. And I think you and I discussed this on a podcast recently, why they should rather not look at the cloud hosting option as a safe digital transformation and rather look at a pure cloud option. Maybe you can just talk to that, why they should be looking at that.
And again, if we look at businesses, Jeff, important is security around data. We all know legislation governing it, protection of personal information, and that is key for any organization that looks at a cloud solution. That security tick is being provided by the vendor. So as Sage, we are responsible for giving that infrastructure. And normally when you transition from desktop maybe to cloud connected, that responsibility still sits with you as a customer. But when you move to cloud native, that becomes part of the value add that the vendor, in this case Sage, provides with Sage Intacct. Compliance is always key for any organization, and you want to make sure you stay on the right side of compliance. And that's part of the solution offer. But one of the biggest levers for me personally is the no infrastructure cost. And I know we're going to touch on it a little bit later, but that's probably one of the, I want to call it the hidden costs that customers forget when they switch from desktop to cloud native, the benefits behind that as well. And if something do go wrong, I'm going to tell a story. We had a customer which unfortunately had a massive impact on their business. They lost their data or their physical premises. And the fact that they were in the cloud meant the following day they could access their data and they can keep on working on it. And that's that access anywhere, anytime. And part of the security is your disaster recovery and backup procedures, which is key to make sure that you future-proof your business. And then lastly, when you look at scalability, the way you run your business today could fundamentally be different than how you're going to run it in the next 2 years. And make sure that when you go on the journey of digitalization or looking at vendors, Sage Intacct specifically can scale. And that's the beauty behind the product.
Yeah, and I think, Kara, so we had a webinar with another customer of ours, and in the role of CFO, they were saying that they look after the IT as well. And, besides the cost impact of running your own security, disaster recovery, infrastructure, like you're saying, there's also those sleepless nights that's something going down on the server just before month end or year end that he used to say, why am I even stressing myself about this? This is not my core responsibility. This is not how we make money. Why are we not focusing on core competencies on things we're good at and getting partners in, like you said, Sage and Sage Intacct, who do this much better than we can. And they've had a phenomenal growth in their business as a result of making those brave decisions. And then once, let's say the businesses have made the decision that cloud hosting is not for them and cloud is directly, there's quite a few options in the market. Why would they want to go with Sage Intacct?
Yeah, and first of all, as we said, it's a cloud native product. Excuse me. That means as Sage, as I mentioned, we're responsible for maintaining that infrastructure. But coming back to the solution and the fit, one of the big advantages of Sage Intacct is the fact that it's very verticalized. So I'm going to use an example. For Andries and their business, he spoke about how it fit into their structures. Because of the deep verticalization, we can drill down, and one of the key call-outs is specifically workflows, automation processes where it was manual. Now you put it into a workflow and you configure it accordingly. Multi-dimensional accounting, very important to drill down into specifically that deep understanding of how does my chart of accounts works. And then the visibility side, real-time information, because that's what you need as a business. If I want to pull information today regarding profitability, I would like to have a real-time view, not to have a view of cash flow, maybe closing balances of Friday last week. I want to see what it is today. And that power is what benefits the CFO, but also the financial teams. And it goes further into managing the business. I mean, part of Intacct, you can see there the different vertical solutions where it plays in. And that's where we've seen the success so far with the product. And then to that, what is core financials as defined in the product. And obviously, Jeff, I know you're going to interact with the customers on an individual basis, but that becomes part of the value proposition of the product. And then further to that, as you mature and would like to add on more modules or functionality, it's a switch on of those additional modules. One of the most popular ones is budget and planning, which customers has got a big need for, specifically in South Africa, fixed assets, inventory, and what we've also seen in the survey, multiple entities with consolidations at the end of the day. So just by the first question in the poll, we start seeing where the benefits of Sage Intacct comes in for a customer.
Yeah, and I think, Garrett, also just from my perspective, I think some of the things that really appeal to me is the latest tech in it. So the GL outlier that's just been released, which obviously picks up when a transaction is slightly different to historical transactions. So then the transaction doesn't go through. So a lot of the poll was talking about manual processes. There's nothing manual. There's a control check before information is actually input into the system. The same thing with the spend management module in terms of putting that in and restricting any transaction that goes over budgets. I think there's some really fantastic sort of detailed thinking that has gone into some of these the functionality it's not kind of the big selling point, but I think it's probably the most appropriate to a lot of the finance team.
Just one comment, and you touched on it, manual to automation. And I want to bring the humans running the systems into this, because I think a lot of times a company invests in technology, but part of that investment is the investment into people. And I don't want to speak in general, but again, maybe the audience can put some comments in. But as humans, we are hesitant for change. We're used to a certain process, it works perfectly, and let's say it's manual. Now we want to automate it. And the fear becomes, first of all, will I understand the automation? And second of all, is it going to have an impact on my job? And for me, the beauty is you need to take the people along. As humans, we all want to learn new things every day and evolve and become better at what we do. And that's part of the technology switch. As individuals, let's go out there. I mean, we throw terminology like cloud native. Maybe someone is unsure about what cloud native is. Go and read up about it. Maybe you want to know more benefits about, you mentioned on General Ledger and how the intelligence behind it. It's all adding to make everyone's job easier. That you spend the right time on where you add value in the business. And that for me is the power of people investing, gaining their own knowledge, companies investing in technology, and you throw those two into a pot, and it's just magic.
I agree with that, Carrot, and I think one of the stories I always talk from my consulting days is we built a really great system, automated a lot of the manual business process, but the staff decided they weren't ready for the system, so they used to take screenshots of the system and print it out and then move it around for approvals for the finance system. So yeah, it is really around empowering the users and making sure you're on the journey with them. Otherwise, the system's never going to do what's necessary. But I think also just to help that change management, I think one of the things that we really like about the system is it is rated at the top. And it's not just rated at the top, as you can see on the screen, from a functionality perspective. This is an independent research done by Gartner, and it's 5 years in a row. So it's not like it's just, a flash by night. This is a product that's been in the US for over 20 years. It's well been, tested. I think something ridiculous like 15,000 customers globally. This is a really, really top end product. But it's not just the functionality, which we've been talking a lot about. It's also that the customer satisfaction, the people who are using the system are really happy with it. I mean, we brought Andries onto this, and you've heard what he said about the system and what it's changed in his life. But I think, to have constantly highest functionality leadership in a very competitive market in the financial solution space, as well as customer satisfaction, shows that this is a really great product. And it gives us confidence as AWK to present this to everyone. And I think, you've heard a lot from Carrot and myself around how great we think this product is. But maybe, Andries, you want to just talk to this little table in terms of some of the functionality that you've seen that Sage Intacct offers over and above Sage 50 Pastel Partner.
Yeah, I think, Jeff, if you look at the table, so many of those factors are were almost new to us, but it's so convenient. We in the past one would have longed for that, and now suddenly it's available. I must be honest, it's going to take a bit of time to you almost overawed by all the information, but it's going to be so convenient to know that it is available there. I think Gerard has touched on the advantages of it being cloud-based. The automatic quarterly updates can be very helpful from a managerial point of view, and obviously those of the clients or possible future clients that are in the same position that I am, you need to have these kind of information at your fingertips, and now it's going to be available. Where in the past, in our situation specifically, I had to take work long hours to get these figures sort of combined and get it ready. Whereas now it's going to be available. I think Gerard also touched on the fact that it's live, which is it's so much better than working afterwards, say 30 or 15 to 30 days afterwards for the information. It's going to be immediately available. The dashboards I've referred to earlier, which is going to be extremely helpful, and the other advantage of that is the fact that you've got different dashboards and you can customize them. And then the workflows itself, that's something we had spent a lot of time on, but once you've got that set up, it's so convenient, and everybody that have, and Gerard also referred to people's resistance to change. Once they know how the workflow works, it's fairly easy. You can even have people that are not accounting trained that can easily work with it. So it's just getting these principles in place at first, and then from there onwards you just run with it. The multi-entity consolidations we've referred to, and that's a huge advantage. The time saving I've referred to as well. And I like, if you look at the fresh modern interface, if you have worked on Pastel before, it's not mind-changing. It's different, yes, but it's so user-friendly, and I think a lot of people will find it quite easy to work with, especially if you've worked on the previous versions before. Gerard has referred to the no infrastructure maintenance, and again, cost-wise, that makes a huge difference. Again, because it's cloud-based. So one can go on and on. I mean, there are so many benefits. I think if I may just refer to something else here, people might think, yeah, but you're just referring to all the positives, but there are other things, and I think if I could just mention this is just a bit of advice. If people were to go onto the system in future, maybe just make sure that when you plan it, that you do the planning right. And that you also allow yourself enough time to implement it. We are fortunate in the sense that our business is seasonally based. So we're in the second part of the year now, so we've got a bit more time at our hands. But the other thing I should mention here is that AW Cape and Sage have both been so helpful in getting this off the ground and managing it on a weekly basis to make sure that we make progression. And I think the other important thing is to get your people that work with you on your side first, because that also makes a huge difference.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And I think the whole point is you don't want to influence your operations as much as possible. And I think we had a big discussion around when would be appropriate time for implementation, and we agreed that to do it around financial year end time is a very difficult time. There's just too much going on, and the best time is actually outside of that format. Even though there's more data that may be breaking through, it just makes more sense from a capacity perspective. Yeah. And I think, a lot of the South African customers have started to come on board, and I think, Gerard, you're probably pretty proud of this. But I think, once you've kind of made the decision, you've got to, take that leap of faith. And I think you've got to kind of give the audience here, who are very interested, obviously, by just attending, why should they switch?
So I want to take a step back, and I want to bring it to the future of their business and where do they move towards. And as we said, if we look at what happened the past 18 months, challenges for business, access to data, instant visibility, those are pointers to indicate, to say, my business is ready to switch to Sage Intacct or a cloud native product, in this case Intacct. And then further to that, to what Andries alluded to, is to make sure you as a business understand what do you want to achieve. Because a lot of times you can say, oh yes, we want to achieve A, B, and C. And when you conclude the project and you look back, maybe you only achieved one of your targets. And again, when you're ready to switch, plot them down. Make sure you invest with a business partner that can help your business grow. And make sure at the end of the day that if you want to have better visibility, instant visibility, you achieve it by dashboards and reporting. Multiple entities. In the survey, it came up again. That's one of the benefits of Intacct, multiple entities, and the way we handle it within the chart of accounts. Some people love technology change. They want to be on the latest and greatest with all the tick boxes behind technology. And that's where the modern look and feel, ease of use functionality comes in. And lastly, for me personally, is that automation of processes, automation of reporting. It's key. And that Sage Intacct provides. So I would encourage each one on the call, reach out to AWK. You heard one of the customers speaking today, which is Andries, and book your discovery sessions to unpack the future.
Yeah, and I think we can, I think everyone's quite interested to see what those discounts are, Karen. I'm aware of time as well. But I think also the point that you made about scalability, that this is not going to be switched to Intacct and then switch to something else at a later stage. Maybe you just want to give a level of assurance around what level of customer Intacct can support.
Yeah, so again, with the different stats in front of us, I mean, we can see there, if I call out the 630 plus type of entity customers, I mean, it really supports and it can scale. So if you're a smaller type of business, maybe you are using Sage 50 accounting and you want to switch, it can support your business. If you look at volumes, API integrations, amount of transactions, again, it's scalable. So Andries alluded to a seasonal business, them being a seasonal business. So maybe currently being off season, the amount of transactions is less. But as you go into production and peak season, all of a sudden you need to ramp up and I want to say rev it up and get those transactions in and processed. And then you scale the system and accordingly it processes for you. So, I mean, the call out speaks for itself. Whether you're a smaller type of organization that wants to scale, or you're a large organization with complexities, within the Intacct verticals, we can provide that technological solution for you.
Great. And I think from our side, and I think one of the things that has been a frustration for many of our customers over the years is the amount of releases per year on Intacct is 4. And they're pretty solid releases, and not like sort of minor updates. As I mentioned about the GL outlier came out in release 3, and then there's some really exciting things coming up in release 4 coming up in November. And I think that makes a massive difference from an on-premise perspective. Besides the cost of bringing in consultants and having to upgrade the system or the server, updating the software, etc., it's just the increase in value you get straight away. The investment that's from Sage that is going at the moment into all the latest technologies, AI with the GL intelligent time in terms of managing timesheets better, or whether it's a GL outlier or even the Visual Explorer, which is a very, very strong competitor from a top BI tool. I think you're not going to lose out in terms of the releases, and more information is coming. And as soon as you're on the platform, you gain that benefit straight away. It's a global product, so as soon as it's released to everyone. I think the other thing alluded to and Andries had in the market is there's marketplace support there. It's been in the market for over 20 years in the States. There's in every single type of area that the Sage Intacct functionality may not be sufficient for your unique needs. There is an integration that will sort that out. And if it isn't, and we've done this with customers already in the last year, we, as automation integration specialists, we can automate any business process to other systems for you and help you support that so that all your environments, not just the Sage Intacct environment, is world class. And I think, one of the last things just to touch on, and I think we've already gone a lot of this, so I was going to ask Gerard to give you sort of a bit of a blurb around trusting the backup and resilience and compliance, but we have touched on that. But during the peak seasons, as Gerard and Andries were saying, if you don't need it when you're off peak, you can actually turn down. So you can actually turn down and save yourself money. That's what a cloud environment is. So if you're a high volume API customer, you can actually throttle your demand. As you find with any AWS or Azure or services that you have in the cloud, you can just throttle it as and when needed, and then turn it down when you don't. So that is also a really fantastic part of it. So before we go straight into the discounts, which I know you all want to, just want to ask one more question to the audience. And that's why, based on what you've heard today and what you've probably researched before you join this, why would you move to Sage Intacct? Would it be because it's a great price? And hopefully when I show you that, you do think that. Are you actually a leader and you want to do the 5 times revenue growth? Are you looking for productivity improvement because your business is all over the place in terms of manual processes? Or is it because of the work from home and the real-time visibility of data is a massive problem in your business? You just can give us some input in what you're finding right now. Straight to the work from anywhere and real-time visibility, which is good to see because that's straight out of the box. A bit on the productivity improvements. Yeah, definitely tending towards the work from anywhere real-time visibility, which is great to see. And I think, with the dashboards and visibility, I think we've done a couple of demos for new potential customers. And when people have arrived late, one of the CFOs says, "Oh no, sorry, we don't actually need this. We've had a look at Tableau and Power BI." And I said, no, this is just the dashboard that sits on top of the financial engine. And it literally is free out of the box on top of this. And they are pretty amazed in terms of drill down capabilities and the dashboarding capabilities. Okay, so yeah, it does look very much around productivity improvements and work from anywhere. Okay, so on to the discounts, which we've all probably been waiting for. This is a fantastic offer coming from Sage. This one is particularly applicable to the Sage 50 Pastel base, and I'll go through a costing example straight after this so you can see how that kind of pans out for you. But we've also got an offer available in the offer tab, which I'll ask Mel just to start that and share that with everyone now. But the discount and how it works is that it's 60% discounted on the software in year 1, 50% in year 2, 40% in year 3, 30% in year 4, and then 20% in year 5 and beyond. Now that is a fantastic saving of money on a system that is world-class. And why are they doing this? Well, what they've seen over the last year is that the Sage 50 Pastel base and the Sage 200 Evolution as well are the primary adopters in this country. They're looking for a cloud-based system. They're looking for the real-time visibility, which is all that you're talking about as well. And I think this is a really great opportunity for you to embrace this and be one of the leaders in the market. And we're happy to step you through that process. Just drop your names and details through on the chat window, and we can step you through that process. We can do a tailor-made demo so you can see a little bit more of the functionality, see if it's right for you. And it really, really is a great opportunity. And I would say, Gerard, once in a lifetime.
Once in a lifetime. Now, I think for me, Jeff, what's very important is if we come back to the poll just now, the audience indicated that, listen, there's productivity we wanted to look at. We want to make sure that we get our benefit from the system. Now, first of all, if a potential customer goes on this journey, pricing is a component during the decision-making process. But pricing shouldn't be the only consideration. I want to bring it back to what we spoke about. Functionality. Why do you want to switch? What is the benefits you want to get? And then you're going to look at price. And I would like each member in the audience to go through that selection process and then reach out. And obviously, we do the discovery sessions with AW Cape and Sage to the potential customers with a promotion with a promotion available. And as you rightly said, this is a Sage 50 Pastel promotion, but we also do have a Sage 200 Evolution promotion available, and AW Cape can share the detail with each one of you. But for us, we want to hear success stories about customers. We want to hear news of happy customers. So during this process, we'll support and make sure that we work out a really value-add deal for each customer.
Yeah, I think, Carrot, that's very clean, and I think, you know, the discount and the pricing is very important, because obviously the transition is a big risk for businesses. But over this last year, we have actually turned customers away that would like Intacct, mainly because we found it to be ill-suited to what their needs are. And it's a risk to actually give a system to a customer where it's not going to suit the needs, or they're trying to kind of put a square peg in a round hole. This system is built for what it's meant to do, and it should go through the right discovery process and make sure that it is going to add the benefit. Otherwise, it's not worth it for that individuals or companies. Okay, so let me quickly share my screen. It's a very, very brief overview of what, from a costing perspective. This is just an example of a customer right now. And the reason why I brought this up is whenever you have the discussion with AW Cape, and we can go through that when we show you the presentation of pricing, your first thing you're probably going to do is look at the financial software for Pastel partner that you're spending every year. As an example, this customer was spending 7,200 per year at 600 Rand per month. When we sat down with them and we started to work out exactly how much they're actually spending to support that financial software, in terms of the server, the screen, the keyboard, the network, this is what, Andries, and maybe you can talk to this as well. How much, you know, your business is spending to support that financial software running on a server. How much are you paying the IT technician or the outsourced provider that's actually hosting that service for you? That's an extreme cost that you're probably not factoring in because it's hidden under your cost centers. Andries, I don't know, for your side, when you did this evaluation, what were you finding some of the costs that stood out for you?
You're absolutely spot on, Jeff. One tends to not consider those additional costs, you know, and once you bring that into play, I mean, the decision is actually so much easier. We again referred to it earlier when we said it's cloud-based, but you're eliminating so many of these costs which you would otherwise would have had. And if I can just add one more thing, which you had referred to just a bit earlier, you had said that you would not recommend something to someone which will not be applicable on their business. And we experience it from our side as well. You guys have been very open to us as far as that's concerned, because we have thought we would go to something different. And again, according to your advice, it was the right decision to go this way with all the additional benefits, one being the fact that it's cloud-based and you have all these cost-saving benefits of it.
Yeah, and I think, you know, as Karen alluded to, that besides the cost per month that you're probably spending, and you need to do your own calculations of this, I'm happy to share this so you can do your own cost calculation. But when you see the per user cost, because as Andries alluded to, it's not just your financial users anymore. This is an extension of some of your business processes that go right out, if you take the inventory management module, into your warehouses. So you can actually extend your financial system to be right across your organization. And those users can also use the system. And because it's cloud-based, they're able to interact with it directly. And those are updated in real time as well. So there's a lot of benefits from that perspective. And the fact that what we're seeing on average is that your payback is in less than 6 months. And the productivity improvements is greater than 65%. Now, if you take someone in your finance team that might be sitting there as a debtors clerk or doing bank recons, how much are you actually paying them at the moment to do all that work? And what they could be doing with their expertise rather than doing that, and how much more productive they'd be, and their salary would be better utilized. You're going to get a cost saving there as well. Okay, so that's... Go ahead, Andries.
Sorry, I think there's also a human factor involved there. You know, you're developing people in ways that they never thought would be possible, because they're exposed to more things now, which would previously would not have been considered.
Agree. And I think the opportunity there to I think in your case, Andres, what we're looking around is we've actually extended the scope of the project to look at those workflows and integrate more people within to the finance process to give those better, tighter controls.
Correct. Absolutely.
Okay, so it's time for questions. I'm just going to do a quick search through the chat window. I see one from Sam.
So Jeff, I quickly want to cut in there while we're getting the chats. But we've spoken. I mean, Andries spoke about the benefits to their business, but I would like to highlight 2 more case studies and challenges that customers had. The one customer said that their CRM and finance were in 2 separate silos. The order to cash process was manual. They had limited reporting and lack of management reports and dashboards. And once they implemented Sage Intacct, they gained seamless integrations. And I think that's something we briefly spoke about, is the power of integrations. That seamless data integrations with Salesforce and Sage Intacct in this scenario, fully landed cost analysis, and they reduced their AR analytics and debt collection by 5 days. Now, if you take that in consideration for any, I want to say, CFO finance leader, those are really great benefits. The other one was also, the other customer said, manual processing, forex control, lack of management reporting. And again, the faster turnaround time on processing and getting month-end done was a key call out for them.
Sure. Well, those are amazing stats, Garrett. Thanks for sharing. I think there's a lot of stories like that. I mean, our own customers, besides Andres, the ones that they really are seeing the benefits straight away. The visibility of what's happening in the business, the controls of finances, and the opportunities to integrate with other systems to make things better, not just for the finance team, but for their customers. It really, really is a game changer. Okay, so looking at these, the questions. So Sam really likes your investment in people, Gerard, so do we. And just looking further, is the promotion linked to 50? I think you addressed that, Gerard. It is other products as well. And obviously on each case by case basis, we're going to address, what your situation is, what your costs are, and how we can make this work for you if the system's right for you. So let's have that discussion. Let's sit through discovery. There's a no obligation demo that'll be tailored to your business, and you can sit through that and understand more of the functionality. James, yes, you can definitely get the recording after this. Training and implementation and coaching. So there's 2 factors to that. There is training that follows on straight away from the Sage Intacct membership that you can purchase, and it goes through all the different modules and everything. What we found from an implementation perspective, and this is what we're doing with Andres, we're doing a lot of custom-based training, sort of hand-holding user training, and our empowerment subsidiary Applico is actually developing a whole set of Sage Intacct training material for the end user, and particularly focused around a accountant and a debtors clerk, or as any role within the finance team, as opposed to looking at the Sage Intacct module. So what we feel here is that there's an opportunity to grow not just Intacct users and their understanding the system, but ideally to actually empower people within the country to have skills to cross businesses, cross systems, to be a good accountant or a good debtors clerk. So that's a skill that they can put on their CV. So yes, there is training and implementation available. How long does it take to implement? There's always someone who asks that, but I think most of the time that question comes from seeing some of the larger ERP implementations over the years taking 3 to 4 years. This is definitely not the case with the system. This is actually a system where we as the implementation partners have to use the logins of the user. It is meant to be built and configured by users. So it is a lot more quick to market. Andres and the team have been working, I think, for 2 months or just over 2 months. Andres, maybe 3 now, just there. And we are mostly finished from a configuration perspective. We're now working on workflows and scenario testing. And on another customer, which was at a really tight deadline, it was a little bit smaller customer, and they just wanted kind of as-is functionality to see it up and running. We're aiming to do it in a month. So it is a very, very fast implementation cycle. Obviously, it depends on the scope of how many modules you want to implement. Is Sage Intacct available for West Africa region? Well, Gerard, I think you need to start to talk with what the rollout plan is. Seems some interesting parties outside of South Africa.
Yeah, so currently we only got Sage Intacct available in South Africa for the ZA legislation. I don't want to commit to any other countries' localization at this stage, but we'll keep the audience informed of the localization outside of South Africa.
But there's no, obviously, restriction in terms of having a South African entity with a subsidiary in another country, and that can be handled. But obviously, the compliance and tax that you would have to manage separately. So you could obviously, from a compliance perspective, South African region would be fine. And if you have subsidiaries outside of the country, you could make a plan for those entities. But it hasn't been rolled out in West Africa, as Gerard said. Okay, so is there any other direct questions or any other interest from anyone? I think that's pretty much it, and we definitely will share the recording. So I just want to say thanks to everyone for joining. It's I know an hour and on a virtual call is a lot of your time in a day. I hope you've learned a lot about Sage Intacct, and please reach out to us. We're on LinkedIn. We've got a website. Follow us, find out a little bit more about Intacct, ask direct questions. We really want to hear you. And as I said, the promotion runs to October the 15th. And then I just want to say a big thank you to our guest, particularly Andries, joining us as our customer. I really appreciate your time. And Gerard, again, lovely to chat to you. I really appreciate your time as well.
Good.
Thank you. Really.
Thanks a lot, Jeff.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye.